saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. There's nothing to you otherwise.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous. Welcome back to the Dangerous Man Podcast. This is your host, John Kostohris, and I'm joined by co-host
Adam Thooft. What's up, boys?
Welcome back for another day, another dollar, another season, another
absolute fantastic time.
freaking banger.
Yes. Yes.
Wow,
Bangers only.
I didn't know I was this good at poetry, man.
I guess so. I took some pre-workout before this, so now I'm like a little like angry hyped.
Yeah, that, actually, you should tell that quick story, what you discovered this morning.
Oh, I just discovered that pre-workout is a very good way to wake up in the morning. So, I just like pounded an energy drink before, but I think like pre-workout is designed to get you like amped. So now I want to like punch something, which makes me feel more dangerous. So then I want to like, talk on the Dangerous Man Podcast.
It's like, hey, if we ever have a guest, the prerequisite is you drink a pre-workout before you get on, because otherwise you're not amped enough to get your message.
And then you wrestle with Adam, and then you're ready to go.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, it's like, we have a requirement of 20 pull-ups before you come into the door of our studio.
Because you have to be amped.
Yes. Or something like that. But, actually, let's see here. Something that I was reading this morning, actually, Adam, that I thought I was reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that I'm applying to my life in the area of, so it's skill-based, but copywriting. Essentially, if you don't know what copywriting is, I'm not going to get too granular into it or into what I'm talking about today, but I will say it's essentially copy is referred to any written, spoken material in anything sales related, anything website related, anything ad related. So if even like YouTube videos and blogs and such. So pretty much anything written, words, headlines, text, videos, spoken, scripts, video scripts, whatnot. It's all copy. And so copywriting is essentially, it's writing. It's a skill of writing, but specifically for selling or communicating like a message across to an audience. So it could be used in a nonprofit space as well, or really anything kind of a persuasiveness or communication based. But at any rate, that's copywriting. That's a skill that I'm starting to work on for a lot of my business. And I do a lot of contracting for like people's funnels and websites and the front end and back end of people's essentially businesses and onboarding customers. That's a bunch of techno babble for basically, if you don't know anything about business, that just means that if you ever read copy from any brand, think like Nike, if you ever come across anything they've written, an email,
it's pretty much like their ads,
website ads, it's like I basically create that stuff and I help businesses and my own business as well, to basically implement that and have that be effective. So that's just kind of context that I'm not blabbing here a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. But the message I have is actually comes from kind of a quick story in the book here. But he talks about so conceptually, his framework is basically like.
So who's this talking?
Oh yes, that's good. So his name is Jim Edwards, and he's actually a good friend and business partner with Russell Brunson, who I've mentioned a lot on the show. These guys are both mentors of mine, and I'm students of theirs as well. And so Jim Edwards has basically been copywriting for probably about 20 plus years. He's around like 50 years old, I think. So he's just had a lot of experience doing this and wrote a whole book about it. And a lot of what he does in his business is teaching and helping people kind of copyright and implement that into their businesses. So super cool. And I'm really grateful for what he's been teaching me. But essentially, the cool thing here is like a lot of people make a huge mistake in their copywriting. And, I actually want to apply a lot of these themes, not to necessarily like, oh, John, I don't do that. And so this doesn't make sense. Like, this is just a kind of really granular skill if you do website stuff. And it's like, well, if you've ever spoken before with your mouth or written something down in a text or email, or you do creative writing or anything, this is basically just communication 101. And I'm going to apply it to a broader kind of integration into our life application. So stick with me with the quick concept, and then I'm going to break it down into how I think this is super useful in a lot of areas of life. But, a lot of people make a huge mistake, especially online and in anything copywriting. And basically, they don't do what we call segmenting traffic. And that's basically kind of like traffic is kind of like, do people click onto your website? Who views your website? That's traffic. Think about it on a road. Do people drive on your road? If there's a lot of people driving on your road, there's a lot of traffic. Same thing. And so essentially, you'll have a whole lot of people that will come click onto your website, right? Again, this is concept. But potentially you are speaking to them through your writing, through your copy, through, the video, the person speaking. And it doesn't make sense to them, or it's not what they're looking for. And, that could basically be an example of, oh, I'm looking for weight loss. And I click onto your website, but you're just like, hey, I'm Phil, and I help people lose weight and things and stuff. And let me tell you about the story of Weight Loss Plus Initiative Pro, my company that I have built for 30 years. Like, nobody cares. That's not why they clicked on your website. And all of a sudden, they click off. What they're looking for is more than likely that they have a problem or an itch that they're trying to scratch. I need to lose weight, or I'm getting, actually, it's probably not even that. It might be I'm pretty fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they click on the website.
Like being fat.
And the first thing they want to see on the website is, are you dissatisfied with your body weight? It's like, I don't like being fat. And then they hear, do you not like being fat? Does that not suck you in as a reader? Like, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And then they connect with you way better, and then they can get into some of the other, they can introduce their product or their solution later. But if they lead with that, well, there's a whole lot of people that are just not even thinking about that. Whereas some shoppers, maybe I'm like clicking to this website and that website and this Amazon product and that Amazon product, looking for soap. And I'm comparing all these soaps, but like, I probably want to like solve the problem of like, the other one made me itchy, or like I need something to clean myself with, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking, but they're already to the point where they know that soap is the solution to that problem of getting clean, or they need a new soap because it irritates their skin. And so all of a sudden you can speak to that type of a person that comes on your website talking about soap because they're aware that they need soap.
Mm-hmm.
But some people aren't even to that point. They just know the problem. That's kind of what I was getting at with the weight loss. And so some people, they don't only know they need soap, but they actually know that your brand, or if it's Dove or whatever, is actually like their favorite brand, and they're like really interested in the new types of products that you have. You don't need to introduce yourself. You don't need to say, I'm Dove. You don't need to say, do you have a problem? It's like, well, I've already been with you for 10 years. Like, you don't need to you know what I mean? You don't need to start this over. I love Dove, right? And so you're going to talk to that type of a person in a third way, which is just as if they're a friend, somebody who knows you. Think about somebody who's like a friend or follower on Instagram or Facebook, right? And they already love and know you, and they come back, and you just get to integrate or talk to them like a friend, kind of.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give that example, that kind of those, and I only have a couple more thoughts here to make that more clear. But I wanted to paint a picture of that there's 3 different ways really that we communicate with people, especially in a business setting. And isn't just if you own a business or an entrepreneur, but you could work for any job. And if you understand that there's 3 different types of people that could walk in the door of your company, then you know that you need to just interact with people and have conversations differently. And to make that clear, he's got a quote here. He says, and then I'm going to use the word prospect. If you're unaware, that's just like a potential customer. If your prospect is aware of your product and has realized that it can satisfy this desire, your headline starts with the product. If he is not aware of your product, but only has the desire itself, then your headline starts with the desire. If he is not yet aware of what he really seeks, but is concerned with the general problem, then your headline starts with the problem and crystallizes it into a specific need. And that might be slightly confusing to some, and it might make sense to others. He breaks it down even more. He's going to split that into three bullets here, and he says, like, basically there are, like I said, there's those 3 traffic sources: hot, warm, and cold. That's how you describe those 3 that I mentioned earlier.
It's kind of like how familiar somebody is with your brand or what you're talking about. If you're going to like use it in like, even just in conversation, like, if you're talking to people just in a group or something, and you're talking about kind of more like a complicated topic, like, I don't know, computer science. Right. And there's someone who like has barely used computers that comes in, you're going to have to talk to them differently than the person who like is fluent in JavaScript as well as Klingon. Like,
right. Because they know that lingo, you can just get right into it. But for a lot of people, you're just going to be like a nerd talking over their head, and they're going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, I even have to pause and be like, oh, that word, let me tell you what that means. Because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, what's traffic? So there's a reality of knowing who you're talking to that I think is super powerful in life. But if you understand that, like, okay, the people that are the most familiar with you, most familiar with the words you use, you know, it could be products, but it could also just be, it could just be the conversation topic or the industry or the sports team, the players on the sports team, right?
Yeah.
And that'd be hot. That's the temperature of that type of person or traffic. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people might even think about this as like traffic as this broad thing, but I like that he goes on here, and the last thing I want to say just crystallizes it into basically be like, you're talking to a person or a group of people. Like, you're not talking to numbers or an abstract, like, here's my product, blah, 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 blah. Etherweb, see it. Like, you're talking to a certain person who has these problems and questions and roadblocks in their life. And so, you know what I mean? Like, talk to them like I'm talking to you, Adam. You know what I mean? Yeah. And make it real and make it understandable. And people are going to just actually want to read what you have to say then.
Yeah.
Like, and get more value from it.
Connection.
Yeah. So, and exactly. So, but here's the last thing. So there's the 3 sources, and he just kind of gives, again, another kind of way of understanding it. But somebody who is maybe like on your email list, or they follow you on an email list, would be, they would be subscribed to me, and I would send them messages. But they follow you on social media, right? They know your name. That's considered a hot source. Just to kind of summarize here, someone who's looking for a solution to a specific problem they have, but they don't actually even know about you specifically yet, or what you offer, your product or solution, then they are a warm source, right? So they're kind of in the middle. Somebody who doesn't even realize there's a solution yet available or out there, but they do know that they have a problem. That's a cold source. So it's the tiers. And so, yeah, I thought that was, we already kind of got into that a little bit, but I did think that was just really applicable to life, because how many times do we not really understand who we're talking to, and we communicate wrong, and we don't connect with somebody.
Right. So it's kind of like you have to understand your audience better and how much they're familiar with you and what you're talking about. And then based on how familiar they are with you and what you're talking about, to actually talk differently to them so they understand better what you're trying to actually say so you can connect with them better, so you can actually improve their life, give them value, inspire them with hope. Basically give them goodness.
Or the word we like to use is value.
Yeah.
But that's a good way of breaking down value. Yeah.
Of actually being able to connect with people. Because, like, you're really not able to give people value if they're like, what are you talking about? I don't know. I'm kind of lost. This kind of seems like I'm in a maze dream right now. I don't understand what Klingon is or what JavaScript is. So I'm not really following this conversation about random YouTube videos. I'm referencing stuff, by the way, but
nice.
But if you get those references, good job.
I think I'm more of cold traffic in this.
Yeah.
So
if I'm talking to you in that situation, I'd have to fill you in on it.
On the inside joke, right?
Yeah. So if you might be, it's the joke is fluent in JavaScript as well as Klingon. That is a line from a parody by Weird Al. Weird Al
Yankovic.
Yeah. It's White and Nerdy. It's like
I do actually know that song.
Yeah.
I just don't remember the lyrics of that verse.
Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy though, because I'm just thinking about this topic of, communication and whatnot. I think it is a really powerful nuance, right? Because I've been thinking about this. If you do public speaking, I know you do, Adam, and something I'm sure all of us as leaders want to get into more is whether it's in front of a lot of people or just like a team, right?
Yeah.
That you lead or even just like, we could even just say your family, the dinner table, like the group you lead, the person that you're king over, that you not in a sense rule, but you have that responsibility to help lead and guide them and be that strength as a man. Then we've talked about communication, question asking, storytelling. And I think another layer deeper to the nuance there is, am I using the words that they use?
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump, there's actually a story of this. Donald Trump gets a lot of flack, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I think most people know that. But.
Any politician or business person or really any person is going to have haters one way or another, but that's neither here or there. I'm not making this super political, but I did want to give the example of actually there's kind of a misconception out there that he's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Because he speaks all of his speeches that you'll see in his presidential campaigns, everything.
Yeah.
When he was in office, he spoke at or below a third grade level. And in the marketing world and in the business world, those who actually are effective, they know the secret that is people don't use complicated words, and majority of the nation is rather dumb in terms of like they use simple words. They use slang, and they don't write academically the way they don't speak to each other academically like a paper. That's just something that's kind of some bullshit you learn growing up that's helpful for if you want to go to college or if you're writing an essay.
If you want to write a paper, use big words.
And again,
and then you feel like you're being smart, but actually you're just saying a bunch of stuff to say a bunch of stuff. And that's the thing that I feel like I got taught how to write papers incorrectly until my senior year of high school. Anyway.
Yes. You can tell we're passionate about some of this stuff. It turns into little rants here and there all the time.
I've talked about being pissed about school before. So
yeah, but there's where was I going with that? I was talking about communication. Oh, third grade level.
Yeah.
Basically, it was hey, when you write your ads that you see when you're scrolling on Google or whatever, Facebook, if it's just really ethereal and complicated, people don't even, it just goes over their head. They don't connect. They just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
You actually have to use the words that they are using in their head and in their own conversations. And so different groups or niches of people, they relate to each other with certain jargon.
Yeah.
And so knowing their jargon and using their words, it's actually how you communicate with people. I don't know if you knew that, but that's actually how it works in real life too.
Wow.
You will
Imagine.
lose people if you talk to them like hot traffic, but they are cold or
Yeah.
warm or just a different culture.
Yeah.
And
Kind of like the example I brought up earlier. Like,
yeah,
if you're talking to computer engineers and you're using computer engineer lingo,
sure.
and then like someone who's like a business major comes in and doesn't really understand much about computers, but they have to understand what's going on with computer stuff.
Sure.
You have to make analogies about how computers work. Like, hey, like we have to get an update out to people, and
Yep.
but that's kind of just like, hey, we have to, send out have all the computers connected to each other, and it's kind of just like being able to talk to everyone in the same room.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the third grade, I know we digress, but on Donald Trump talking at a third grade level,
Uh-huh.
the power of it, and this is what I was trying to say the whole time, the power of that is that people can understand him.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he's stupid. He's like, well, if he talks like a multi-billionaire and he talks in all the jargon and language, nobody's going to be like, what the heck? It's going to, like, he reads books all the time. He's studying all this complex stuff, and he's incredibly intelligent, but he also knows who he's talking to.
Yeah.
And he knows how they understand best. And so he talks to them at that. He doesn't talk down at them. He talks on the same, using their words. And so I thought that was just a powerful story when I heard that. And when I learned about writing at a lower level, because it's the same thing. And this is, I think these traffic categories, these three: hot, warm, cold, I think it helps break down like a framework that I can use in my life to understand how familiar are they with me, my message, or the conversation topic, and how would they naturally kind of communicate to people that they are in their circles. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that. And so I do see this a lot in Christian circles, but people will use certain types of words that you would hear in church land. And a lot of other people are like, they don't get it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do I talk to somebody about my faith or God or the Bible or church if they are totally used to a different culture, a different like multiverse of words,
yeah,
and ideas. And so that's something I think that's the biggest value add that I wanted to give, talking to you, Adam, and sharing that with you and to all of our listeners back home is this is something that I'm kind of shifting the way I'm approaching how I think about this. And I think it's really powerful as leaders, as men, to be able to be more effective in our communication and more inspiring, more connecting with people.
So if you're trying to be able to talk to your audience, like based on cold, hot, warm, or cold, warm, hot, whatever, in like real life and like conversation, how do you know which one you're talking to? Do you think?
In like a real life setting?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think we should mastermind this a little. I'm just trying to think of some scenarios in my own life. I mean, you gave a good example of like the computer conversation. So it's like, I think the simple thing is actually, now I think about it, questions. The best way to actually just have better interactions with people is to ask good questions. And some of that's just like, some questions actually just give me a kind of a pulse check on where someone's at. And so another way to say that would be, do I know if you know anything about microphones, Adam? Well, I might say like, hey, actually I'm a music guy and I love microphones and audio. And well, I guess, are you familiar at all with microphones, Adam?
I use microphones, but I don't know, like, I know like my sound waves get transferred into like electrical current somehow through it.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't really know how they do that.
So you're like not familiar that there's like two different types of microphones and the way that the mechanics they're built. That's kind of new to you.
Yeah, I have no idea how that works.
Yeah. I don't know. That's totally fine. I just kind of wanted to know so I could, because I was not going to go into a ton of detail if you already knew about it. We could just talk about music.
So it's basically that'd be
so that's pause. So
yeah, that'd be a heat check. basically.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. But you get that I'm asking a couple clarifying questions. I'm like, does he understand? Does he already have previous understanding of this? And in this case, he kind of did. And so I know that he understands how a transducer works, right? Which is essentially the mechanical part inside of a microphone that converts it from audio waves, me talking, and into electricity going through a microphone cable to the computer. He gets that. And so then I already know he's kind of in a warm category.
Yeah.
He's not familiar. He probably doesn't know microphone brands. If I drop Telefunken or audio, advanced audio, or there's a billion others.
I'm like, I don't know.
It wouldn't mean anything to him.
Yeah.
And so I might say like, oh, have you heard of this brand Telefunken? And you might go, well, let me just ask you that.
What's Telefunken?
Like, oh yeah. It's just this really, it's this old brand of microphones that they made some pretty classic, like microphones that are legendary, and they're kind of just renowned as these awesome sought after microphones for their warm tone sounding, just like they just sound like buttery and really great in the studio when recording music.
Oh, so they make you sound really good.
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm telling Adam that I bought one of these, that means something to him now.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa, John's excited not because he's a nerd, but because this is actually really sought after piece of gear in his niche, in his circles of audio engineers.
Because now that you've explained that, I understand, like, wow, that's actually kind of really cool if you got one of those. Whereas like if I was already like Hot Traffic, like I already knew the brands, you could literally just say, I got a Telefunken microphone. I'd be like, what? That's awesome. If I was hot, if I understood. But because I'm more of like a warm, that you have to explain to me like what that is. And if I was like, I'm like cold, would be like, I have no idea that the difference of microphone even makes a difference. Like, aren't all microphones basically the same? Like,
you might have heard the word, but you might not even be able to picture what a microphone looks like. That's probably going a little too far, but you get the idea.
Yeah. So most people, when it comes to microphones, aren't like ice cold,
right?
Just because of how much, how prevalent they are.
If I drop jargon like what we said, or I might even add like if I said this is a dynamic microphone, or this is a condenser microphone, or I need to send phantom power to this microphone.
Unless you're Hot Traffic, you're like, what?
Yeah, you do not know that jargon at all.
What does that mean? I don't know. Me feels stupid now.
But exactly, and there would be a disconnect in our conversation, and it would just be weird or unpleasant, or like we like to be agreeable, we like to connect as humans. So, but I wanted to wrap by just saying that to a Hot Traffic, that would just be conversation. That would just be normal everyday words. Yeah. That he uses, that Adam and I use. But to somebody who's colder, maybe warm even, that's jargon. It's unknown language, and it means nothing to him. And so if I drop it, it's kind of considered techno babble, meaning it's the babble, and it's like a very geeky techno babble. It's just like, hey, that's all it means to them. It's blah, 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 blah. And you need to basically use an analogy or explain. It's kind of like this, or here's an example of something you might already know about to describe it to you. It's like playing those catchphrase games or whatever.
Yeah, like I remember a time I actually went rock climbing with my sister, and I was talking to her about some business stuff. But she's not like
take us home, Adam.
Super like. She's not like a super like entrepreneur business person. Like she does have like a major in business communication, but it's kind of like one of those things that now that she's like several years out of college, if you don't use it, you lose it. But like how she's used it is like differently, because she's mostly in like the what's it called, the nonprofit kind of sector.
Oh, sure.
So she'll understand the words that they use in the nonprofit, but because I'm talking about more profit business, what I talk about and like profit margin and or for instance, or like other stuff like that, she doesn't necessarily understand. And I, not really knowing this concept, just kind of said stuff, and I'm like, oh wait, you don't get this. How do cavemen blah blah blah? How do I talk to you about this stuff when you don't understand. And I think it's just because like,
yeah,
she's my sister. So I just kind of,
you're more willing to kind of open the floodgates of your.
But also make like kind of the mistake that like, because like, I feel like also because I'm the youngest of my siblings, I just kind of assume that my older siblings know more than me about everything. I think it's like a younger sibling thing. Generally you consider that your older siblings know more than you. But now that I'm like an adult, it that changes. Like, oh, I might actually know more about certain topics than you do. Cool.
Right.
So it's like one of those things that you have to like remember almost. And you're like, oh yeah, what do you know about this? I need to ask better questions to be able to heat check and tell, oh, you don't understand how profit margin is calculated, or
maybe even the definition, huh?
Or even the definition. And you don't necessarily understand that, like, hey, if I could create a business with low overhead, how cool that is. Because generally, if you have to start a business, you have to generally put in a bunch of money first.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of like those things where it's like,
that's context that you would need to fill her in on.
Yeah, it's like
have a good conversation with her.
Yeah, like if you're trying to give someone like a business opportunity, you have to know how to explain it to them properly based on how well they understand business.
Yeah. Just imagine, guys, what that would be like and how impactful that would be in your circles. Maybe there's certain pain points that you'd have just within people not listening well, or, just you imagining yourself being a leader, being a strong man who can connect with different groups of people and inspire them and not just be on a different page than people. Imagine how impactful that would be for you and your mission towards greatness. And so share this podcast with a friend so you can help other men to embrace danger and become great. And you've been listening to the Dangerous Man podcast. Join us next time. Until then,
claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.